Second book of Samuel, session 23. All right, now this is chapter 14, the recall of Absalom. What I'm going to do, I'm going to read the whole section to you. I'm going to highlight with my voice certain sections that you need to listen to very carefully. And then tomorrow I'm going to explain this because I promise you there is so much incredible prophecy and wisdom and truth hidden in this chapter. But it cannot go on for too long, and I need to actually, I would have loved to do the whole chapter, but it's got 33 verses. It's just going to be way too long. So, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to read the whole chapter to you and listen carefully. And with everything you've learned already this far, you know exactly how to start making connections. Or I'm hoping you will. I know many of you will go through the mysterious, prophetic, deep insights. Then you can see how many of them you actually realized on your own. All right, so we understand now that the listen to me, chapter 13 ended with the soul of King David longed for Absalom. Chapter 14. Now Joab, the son of Zeruiah, perceived that the king's heart was towards Absalom. He was sad. And Joab sent to Tekoa and fetched from there a wise woman, and he said unto her, I pray you, wise woman, they never give us her name, feign yourself, pretend tomorrow to be a mourner, to be somebody that is in mourning. Put on now mourning apparel, and anoint not yourself with oil. So don't make yourself look or smell good. Anoint not yourself with oil. So don't make yourself look or smell good. Pretend like you are in mourning. Be as a woman that has had a long time of mourning for the dead. And then you come to the king while you are now pretending to be this widow. And you speak in this manner to him. So Joab put the words in her mouth, and Joab gave her all the words that she must speak to King David. And when the woman of Tekoa spoke to the king, she fell on her face to the ground, and she did obeisance, and she said, Help me, O king. And the king said unto her, What ails you? And she answered, I am indeed a widow. I am a woman. My husband is dead. And your handmaid had 2 sons. But they fought together in the field, and there was none to part them, to help them with this fight, to get them away from one another. So the one, deliver your son that's killed his brother, that we may kill him for the life of his brother whom he slew, and we will destroy the heir also. And so they shall quench my coal which is left, my king. And they will not leave to my husband neither name nor remainder upon the earth. Here you need to remember the Torah commandments. And the king said unto the woman, Go to your house, I will give charge concerning you. But the woman of Tekoa said unto the king, My lord, O king, the iniquity be on me and on my father's house. You, the king, and your throne will be guiltless. So she says, whatever you decide, I'll take the responsibility on me. Oh yeah, I remember. I'm not going to explain anything now. I'm just going to read. So the woman of Tekoa said unto the king, your throne will be guiltless. And the king said, Whoever sought anything against you, bring him to me. And he sought anything against you, bring him to me, and he shall not touch you any more. Then she said, I pray you, let the king remember the Lord your God, that you would not suffer, listen to this, the revengers of blood to destroy any more, lest they destroy my son. And he said, As Yahuwah lives, there shall not one hair of your son fall to the earth. You must stop here and remember what the Torah says. Then the woman said, Let your handmaid, I pray you, speak one more word unto the Lord my king. And he said, Speak on. And the woman said, Wherefore then hast thou thought such a thing against the people of God? For the king does speak this thing as one which is faulty, in that the king does not fetch home again his banished. Now she's talking about somebody else. For we must need die. Now she's talking about somebody else. For we must need die and are as water spilt on the ground. We as humans cannot be gathered up again, neither does God respect any person. Yet he devised means so that he's banished, be not expelled from him. Here is dual meaning. There's two deep mysteries in this. Now therefore that I come to speak of this thing unto the Lord my King, it is because the people have made me afraid. And your handmaid said, I will now speak unto the king. It may be that the king will perform the request of his handmaid. And this is also something you need to consider now in your own life. For the king will hear to deliver his handmaid out of the hand of the man that would destroy me and my son together out of the inheritance of God. Then your handmaid said, the word of mine good and bad, therefore the Lord your God will be with you. Then David answered and said unto the woman, do not hide from me, I pray you, this thing that I shall ask of you. And the woman said, you can speak, my king. And the king said, is not the hand of Joab in all of this? And the woman answered and said, as your soul lives, my lord the king, none can turn to the right hand or to the left from aught that the Lord my king has spoken. For your servant Joab, he did ask me, and he put all these words in the mouth of your handmaid. To fetch about this form of speech hath your servant Joab done this thing, and my Lord is wise according to the wisdom of an angel of Yahuwah, to know all things that are in the earth. And the king said unto Joab, behold now, I have done this thing. Go therefore, bring the young man Absalom again. Go therefore, bring the young man Absalom again. And Joab fell to the ground on his face and bowed himself and thanked the king. And Joab said, today your servant knows that I have found grace in your sight, my lord. This is something to think about. My lord, O king, in that the king has fulfilled the request of his servant. So Joab arose and went to Geshur and brought Absalom back to Jerusalem. And the king said, let him turn to his own house. Let him not see my face. So Absalom returned to his own house and saw not the king's face. But in all Israel there was none to be so much praised as Absalom for his beauty. From the sole of his foot to the crown of his head, there was no blemish in him. Listen carefully. And when he polled his head, for it was every year's end, because the hair was heavy on him, therefore he polled it. He weighed the hair of his head at 200 shekels after the king's weight. So this is the weight. He polled his hair, he cut it. And unto Absalom there were born 3 sons, and the one daughter whose name was Tamar. She was a woman of fair countenance. She was beautiful. So remember in the previous chapter how he loved his sister Tamar. So Absalom dwelt 2 full years in Jerusalem and saw not the king's face. 2 important. Therefore Absalom sent for Joab to have sent him to the king, but he would not come to him. And when he sent again the second time, he would still not come. Therefore he said unto his servants, see, Joab's field is near my field, and he has barley there. Go and set it on fire. And Absalom's servants set Joab's field. Think about this. Then Joab arose and came to Absalom unto his house and said unto him, wherefore have your servants set my field on fire? And Absalom answered Joab, behold, I sent unto you, saying, come to me, that I may send you to the king, to say, wherefore have I come from Geshur? It had been good for me to have been there still. Now therefore, let me see the king's face, and if there be any iniquity in him, he can kill me. So Joab came to the king and told him. And when he had called for Absalom, he came to the king and bowed himself on his face to the ground before the king. And the king kissed Absalom. All right, we are at 10 minutes. I'll take the next 20 minutes and I'm going to start breaking open from the beginning. But guys, take the next 20 minutes and I'm going to start breaking open from the beginning. But guys, I just want to tell you in advance, chapter 15 is all about now Absalom. He's first of all forgiven. He's back in Jerusalem. He's even back in the good books of King David. He set the field of Job on fire. And now in chapter 15, Absalom steals the love of the 10 tribes. Who are the 10 tribes? Are they not the scattered sheep today in the Gentile nations that are deceived by the son of David? Joshua? No, Absalom, the Antichrist figure, son of David. So keeping chapter 15 in mind, we're going to get to chapter 15. It's much about the beast system in this. But now, back to chapter 14. So basically, Joab, because he loved the king and he didn't really want to see the king suffer, he thought that he would do something good for the king. So he sent this wise woman to try and explain to the king, if the king is going to have mercy on this woman, then the king can have mercy on Absalom. I did remind you yesterday that I think personally, Lucifer, well, I don't think it. The Bible says he was a son of God. But then he fell from grace. He wanted to take the throne of God, just like Absalom wants to take the throne of David. Here we have a beautiful picture of David who loved his son, but his son is becoming his enemy. And he's an enemy in disguise. You know, you don't expect your own brother or your own son to stab you in the back. Going back to the woman, as per the Torah, going back to the woman, as per the Torah, the revengers of blood, as they are called in verse 11, according to the Torah, if you've murdered someone, then you need to be murdered. Right? That is a Torah commandment. That is just how it goes. But in this specific case, the woman, of course, we can totally, 100% understand her predicament. You know, her husband is dead. So the one son is dead because the other son killed him. And if the revengers of blood, according to the Torah, will now kill her second son, the murderer, she will have nobody left. Then she'll be desolate. And the inheritance that has gone over to the son because the father is dead will also be lost. Right? And the father will have no name. Remember the Torah commandment, if a woman's husband dies and there was no children, so the son, then the kinsman redeemer steps in and he marries the woman, and then the firstborn child then carries the name of the first husband that has passed away. So in her case, she is bemoaning the fact that she will have nobody to carry on her husband's name. She will have no inheritance and she'll have nobody left. And she said, it will be like the coal of my fire, you know. My fire will be totally extinguished if they now kill even this son. But of course, this is all pretense. This is a clever plan from Job to try and show the king something deeper that Job wants the king to think about. If he's going to give mercy to this woman, he can give mercy to Absalom. So without consulting the Torah or Yahuwah, he basically decides to say, no hair of this son of hers, no hair of his head will be touched. He will not be touched by the revengers of blood. They will not destroy him. They will not kill him. And there's good and bad in this. And all I can say about this is, not even King David, in all his prophetic meanings as Messiah, and in implication, not even Messiah, can go against the Torah. And I've made a note here in my Bible. Be careful when you go against the Torah, even when it's difficult. She doesn't want the son to be killed. And maybe the son can come to the council, to the court, and he can state his case. And maybe he can get mercy. Maybe it wasn't murder. Maybe it was self-defense, whatever. But if he's a murderer, if he's an outright, non-caring, hateful, if it was a hateful deed, premeditated murder, if it was a hateful deed, premeditated murder, according to the Torah, he must be punished. And not even King David can go against God's Torah. See what happened, King David. Be careful, King David. Because now if we jump to chapter 13, chapter 15, and all the other rest of the chapters, you will see how much pain and suffering and danger and risk and heartache David brought upon himself by not punishing Absalom. Be careful. See what happened to you, King David, to your house, King David, because of your mercy. Be careful not to allow Torahlessness just because you're feeling sorry for someone. It knows the best way to handle things. And in the case of David and Absalom, I'm not saying, Absalom should have been killed. I mean, he killed a rapist. And again, he could have gone to court, brought the rapist to court, and the rapist would have been killed if there was witnesses. And Tamar could also come forward. Or it could have been rectified and, another arrangements according to the Torah could have been made. But Absalom already had a preconceived agenda. He wanted to have that brother killed, that rapist, Amnon. It was the start of his taking over the whole kingdom. So the Torah principle is best to follow. Best that it should have been done to Absalom because of how it turned out later, all the things he did later. But of course, at the time, it was only, killing of the rapist. But the deeper message here is if David followed the Torah, then so much of this could have been prevented. But in the same breath, now that we see a Torahless society where the Torah is not upheld, and the Antichrist with all his lies and his hidden agendas, with his long, beautiful hair, the verse says, 25, he was perfect in his beauty, from the sole of his foot to the crown of his head, there was no blemish in him. Isn't Yeshua called the unblemished Pesach Lamb? Isn't this an antichrist figure? Don't we have here a beautiful man, no blemish on him? He's called the Son of David. He has no blemish in him. But Yeshua has a totally different agenda to Absalom. Absalom wants to take over Israel. Is he going to be a better king than King David? No, he's got an evil heart. But he's greedy. He's prideful, just like Lucifer, who's starting this whole Antichrist movement. And if God, for instance, had mercy on Lucifer and took him back, as his son, and didn't throw him out of heaven when he did, we could have maybe sat with the same thing, where Lucifer ended up trying to take the throne of God. Here, Absalom got mercy, and he still tried to kill his father. He still tried to take the throne. A beautiful thing this wise woman says, and I'm not sure if this is Job's words that he gave to the woman, or if this was his own word. But here I want to shift gears. Here she's talking something beautiful, something wise that is so applicable to us. We must all die. We are all as water spilt on the ground. We cannot be gathered up again. But God doesn't respect any person. And God sometimes devises means and ways so that he's banished. God's banished. She's now talking about a bigger picture. God makes plans so that those of us who are spilt like water on the ground, who are banished, who are in exile, who are scattered into the earth, so that he's banished, is not expelled from him. So this is beautiful. God promised that although we are scattered into the furthest corners of the earth, through the Messiah, through his the earth, through the Messiah, through his word that became flesh, he can even gather spilled water. And maybe Absalom, his case is useless. There's no chance for him. And she says, he's like spilled water. But maybe, King David, God is making a way for you to bring your son back into your house, just like he's making a way for my son not to be murdered. So, on the Antichrist side, on the Torah breaking side, this is not right. But for those droplets of water that has been spilled and scattered into all the earth, and we see in chapter 15, those are the exact spilled water 10 tribes that Absalom is now trying to steal. On the side of the spilled water that the Antichrist wants to steal, Absalom tries to steal the love of the 10, stolen the love of the scattered, lost sheep in the Gentile nations. He made a church out of them, a Sunday keeping, Ishtar keeping, Christmas keeping, pork eating church. He totally stole the love of the spilled water. But this wise woman says, God devised means and ways so that the banished cannot be expelled from him. So although we are banished into the Gentile nations, into the four corners of the earth, although we've become Gentiles ourselves, we are the Gentiles of the world, out of every tribe, nation, and tongue. The spilled water that repents and returns and remembers, Deuteronomy 4 says, remembers God, remembers the Torah, and turn back on the way, the Torah that became flesh. When they turn back to this God, they are not expelled from him. We are back to this God. They are not expelled from him. We are banished, but we are not lost. We have been scattered, but we are busy being regathered. Isn't God already regathering all those ex-Gentiles that now keeps his covenant and is coming back? They are the called out ones, the ecclesia, the church. God calls them and they shema, they listen and obey. Aren't they the spilled water that is gathered in the hand of the Messiah to, when he comes back, to be restored together with the house of Judah in his hand? This is a beautiful verse. So prophetic. All right, so looking at this mercy, the miracle of Messiah, we are the spilled water that is being gathered. So I say, thank you, Father, for the means that you have provided so that we as the banished will not forever be expelled or separated from you. But in the case of Absalom, we have a problem here because now the next thing is the king calls Joab and tells him to go fetch Absalom. So the problem there is, you think your mercy is a good thing. And even here, Joab and the wise woman thought their passion for the king was a good thing. They say the end goal justifies the means. So sometimes if your end goal is good, you might use evil means to get to a good end goal. And therefore, the evil means can sometimes be forgiven. Here, for them to reach their end goal of helping King David get over his heartache because longing for his son, for them to try and rectify this, they are actually suggesting Torah breaking. And the problem is, we must be careful that our passion for the regathering, for the reconciliation between David and Absalom, or God and the world, or even the restoration of the kingdom of God. Because this is the passion that Joab had. He wanted the kingdom to be restored and David to be happy. We also want God to be happy. We want the kingdom to be restored. But we must be careful that our passion for this will not bring the Antichrist back into our midst. And for the restoration, we don't end up destroying the kingdom. And the same in this bigger picture. The passion of so many people in the world, for the last 2,000 years, since the Roman Catholic Church and the Protestant church system has become the main religious institutions. Many people are passionate for God. And they think they can bring restoration through breaking the Torah. And this is not God's way. Look at the end result. Look at what Absalom does to his own father. Look at what he does to his father's wives. Look at what he does to Israel and to Judah. Look at what he does to God. This is the end result when our passions, although it is, there's good intentions in it, but the Torah, then the end result is not going to be what you wanted. Joab, do you think by bringing Absalom back, you're going to make the king happy? Maybe for a short while. But look at what happened. Your field is burnt down. Flippin' hell. What, after everything you did for Absalom? Now do you see what he really is? And Absalom steals the love of the 10 tribes. Absalom enters Jerusalem as if he's king. Absalom tries to kill his own father. This is the end result of a Torah-less passion. This is such a deep message. Maybe I can run through this and be finished. But in all Israel, there was none to be so much praised as Absalom. Here we can really see the connection between Absalom. Here we can really see the connection between the false Messiah and the true Messiah. Absalom, his name is Abba Shalom. Beautiful. Abba, let's give shalom to our father. Absalom. He did so many things right. Right? He looked so perfect. Right? He was so beautiful. Right? He had the best position. Right? He was the son of David. Right? He even seemed to be a sort of a Nazarene, a Nazarite, with his long hair that he cut every year, as does the Nazarites after their Nazarite vow. So there's so many things that makes him look like the true Messiah. And yet the whole time he was the son of David, a Nazarite, perfect, false. Right? Yeshua from Nazareth, Yeshua the Nazarene, perfect in his ways, is the Antichrist going to be. Otherwise, he will not be able to deceive the world to think that he is the true Antichrist. And do you remember in Luke 22, verse 47, Judas, the Antichrist figure, one of the inner circle of Messiah himself, from the tribe of Judah himself, a disciple himself. He even carries the name of Yahudah. He was the one that kissed. But his kiss was like the kiss of Esau. If you've done the jots and tittles with me on the kiss of Esau that he gave to Jacob, it was more like a bite. Because in his kiss, there was the bite of death. And here in verse 33, the king kissed Absalom, his son. He trusted him. Of course, Yeshua knew what Judas was going to do, but still, Judas was a brother. And prophetically in the Psalms, it says, "It is not mine enemy that lifts his heel against me. It is my own brother." In David's case, it's his own son. In God's case, it is one of his sons. In Yeshua's case, I'm not saying Lucifer is a brother to Yeshua, but they were together in heaven called the sons of God. So this kiss isn't the kiss of love or life, but the kiss of death. And Absalom took this kiss of death even further. We'll handle it in the next chapter. Just want to read to you verse 5 of chapter 15. And so it was that when any man came near to Absalom and bowed before him, that Absalom put forth his hand and he said, "Don't bow before me." And he brought him up, he pulled him up and he kissed him. The kiss of the Antichrist. He will draw the world in. He has drawn the world in with a kiss. And the people all bow before him and think, this is the right religion. This is Jesus Christ. This is the Son of God. This is how we must worship God. But in that kiss, there is danger. There is death. Because this whole kiss would never have happened if the Torah wasn't disregarded by David. Because here, everyone that Absalom kissed became his servants. And slowly but surely, he turned I'm talking about God and David. He turned David's people, turned God's people against God. All right, I think this is enough. I'm done actually with chapter 14. I'm surprised. Okay, I'll see you tomorrow and then we'll do this guys, even more interesting